So have you had the mornings where you wake up and you're just like, oh, and your thoughts are spacious, your body is settled. You know those mornings that I'm talking about? You just sort of wake to the day and it's just quiet and glorious. And then there's the mornings that does not happen. The mornings where you immediately wake up and your eyes pop open and it's with all the things. And I've been pondering, as we've been moving through this practical spirituality series, like, why, right? Why some mornings, before you've had a chance to even stub your toe, rub your eyes, there's one experience or another. And I really think at the end of the day, it comes down to spiritual living. It comes down to this very practical, applied principle that we actually bring to life with how we live. And it sometimes looks like a really solid meditation practice. It sometimes looks like, morning and evening prayers. It sometimes looks like coming to a service or a gathering like this. It sometimes looks like a walk in the park. It sometimes looks like time with your beloveds. And what I've come to recognize that it's not super helpful as a minister, because the truth is I preach the same sermon every week. Because at the end of the day, what it ends up distilling down to is the same practice, whatever it may look like, of bringing ourselves more in alignment with the truth of who we are. I wanted to share from the World Wisdom Bible. Imagine meeting 3 people, one of whom cultivates inner peace even in times of strife, one of whom cultivates inner gratitude even in times of suffering, and one of whom cultivates inner clarity even in times of distraction. Now, know that you have met 3 people doing the same spiritual work. So I want you to think about that as we wrap up this practical spirituality series. The one who's practicing peace in time of discord, the one who's practicing gratitude in times of suffering, the one who's practicing wisdom in times of confusion, the one who's practicing spiritual principle in their bodies for health reasons, the one who's practicing spiritual principle in their relationship, the one who's practicing spiritual principle in their search for greater purpose or vocation, the one who's practicing spiritual principle for the purpose of greater financial abundance. It is all the same spiritual work. It is all what brings us into alignment with the truth of who we are. So whether we are doing that in this area of our life or that area of our life or for this purpose or that reason, it's all spiritual living. But I think one of the things that I really want you to know as we wrap up this series is practical spirituality, lived spirituality, is not practical in the sense that we get a wrench and go fix our relationship life. We get a screwdriver and go fix our finances. Practical spirituality is about the inner work that will naturally manifest in circumstances that are lovely. And if one thing I want you to take away from this series is that it's an inside job. And it's a full-time gig. And when we can really begin to abide in the truth of who we are and live inside out, the circumstances that we want to be different and better will respond to that abiding. But when we get ourselves twisted up and we believe that by fixing the outer circumstances, we will have a more spiritual experience, a more peaceful experience, a more joyous experience, a more divine experience, we will shoot ourselves in the foot every time. And it's a paradigm shift, this spiritual living. It's not just like a cute name on the front of the building, Centers for Spiritual Living. It is truly determining that you are a life of the one. That you are here on purpose, that you've been divinely appointed to breathe the breath that you are breathing, and that your life, your very life, every step, every moment, every breath, every minute, every misstep is the life of the one. There is no other truth. And I know sometimes we just like, can you just give me a toolbox with the tools? Please just give me the toolbox. I'll take it from here. Can you just give me the 10 steps to freedom? Or the 5 steps to a greater number of zeros in my bank account? And the truth is nobody can, even though there's a multi-billion-dollar industry that says otherwise. The freedom that each of us is looking for, whether we are looking to be free in our day-to-day life, whether we are looking to be free in our finances, looking to be more free in our relationships, looking to be more free to show up as the authentic self that we want to show up as. Every single one of those answers lives in here. Every single one. And when we allow ourselves to just put down all the fixing, to put down the toolbox for a minute, because I'm a fan of tools. I love all the tools. I love playing with all the practices. And it's not about not doing that or not using your tools. But it's like we walk around with toolboxes, like on the ready. Oh, it's broken! Hurry! I feel crappy! Get the tools! My partner's being a jerk face! Get the tools! Put it down. Put it down. And take a moment to come back to the one power, the one capacity that meets all circumstances with whatever is needed, because you are the life of God. There is never a brokenness that can undo that. There is never a circumstance, there is never a misstep that can undo that. And I think we need to just take off the fixed glasses, take off the broken glasses, and put on, I am a living emanation of the one glasses. And just start there. So I want to have you for a moment entertain this idea. So if you're willing, just close your eyes and repeat with me in your own mind, I am a living emanation of the one. I am. And repeat that a few times to yourself. And notice how that feels. I am a living emanation of the One. I am. And as you let that resonate in your very being, I want you to also notice that every set of circumstances in your life and life itself has gotten nothing on that truth. Faith is opening, accepting, and responding to ultimate reality. Faith, in this sense, precedes every belief system. So as you were having this experience of aligning yourself with the truth of who you are, were you able to open to that truth? Were you able to accept that reality? Faith is not about the all is well outside of us. I get questions about that a lot. If all is well, if God is all good, then why this circumstance? Then why that condition? Why that whole group of people? But faith is not about an external God. Faith is about the acceptance of the greater reality that God is all there is and you are an emanation of that isness, of that allness. And being able to accept and embody that truth. That's what faith is actually about. It is not faith in a superhero God swooping in, making it better. It is the faith that I believe in the one life. And because I believe in the one life, I must believe that that oneness is present here in me and that I have access to it. I have conscious access to the mind of God. I mean, think about that for a minute. As you are opening yourself up to this greater reality, this divine nature that is right where you are. If I have access to the mind of God, if God's mind is in my mind, living itself right now through my thoughts, how could I possibly be confused about some circumstances out here? How could I possibly be confused about what's the next right step to take? And when we find ourselves in confusion, when we find ourselves having the experience of less than, and we can have the experience of less than in pretty much every area of our life. Are we all on the same page about that? Okay. We are having the experience of less than, we are not in faith. The two cannot be happening at the same time. Because it's not about faith in some external superhero God flying in and making it better. It's about the faith that God is right where I am. Having faith and accepting this as true in my own experience. So it's not just that's a great idea and I'm into it. But like, whoa, my mind is a perfect and unique expression of God's mind. And when I have absolute faith that that is so, everything out here is handled. 100%. But when we let the stuff out here get in our heads, get in our hearts, and trick our belief, our faith in what is so, now we are living with outside determining the inside. And we lose the power and the presence of the one. We lose access to the wisdom, to the peace, to the gratitude. And it has nothing to do with the circumstances. It has everything to do with our faith in who and what we are. And if you're anything like me in my journey, the struggle with faith was not a theological struggle. It wasn't like, who do I believe? Which book do I believe? Who do I go to for belief? The fundamental struggle was, can I have faith in a God that lives in me? Can I have faith in my divinity? Can I have absolute trust that the impulses and ideas that rise in my being are divine? That faith is how we experience freedom. And when we allow ourselves to live inside out, we have all the capacity, we have all the power to meet whatever condition and circumstance. One we can anticipate and all the ones we can't. With all that we need, because God is here. And that's when our life turns into that incredible adventure that we sometimes just feel like is beyond our reach. That's when our relationships suddenly become juicy and full of expressed love. That's when those incredible creative ideas that lead to greater abundance rise in our own minds. That is how the world that works for everyone comes into being, because we show up as the divine creatures that we are. But I think we get wrapped up in practical spirituality. I even got wrapped up in preparing this series because I get so many questions about, how do I fix this part of my life? What prayer should I pray to bring in love? What class should I take to change my health status? And I understand the questions, but I think we need to ask better questions. I think we need to ask questions like, who am I really? What am I? What do I belong to? There's been a lot of questions of late around belonging, right? The isolation of COVID, the absolute disruption in all the social justice avenues and areas of the world. And we look for this belonging out here. Do I belong to that party or do I belong to this party? Do I belong to that community, even though I don't really want to use my non-isolated time to hang out with them? But there's a better belonging question. Do I belong to my true nature? Do I belong to myself? Have I discovered belonging in my divinity? Have I so fully accepted the truth of who I am, the truth of what I am as a divine emanation of the One, that the only belonging I need is to belong to myself, to belong to my true nature? And that belonging allows me to move anywhere in the world ever as I wish. It's a paradigm shift, this spiritual living. It's not about how many tools you have in your toolbox, how long you've been practicing, how many classes you've taken, how many sacred texts you've read. It's about turning our attention to the one place we can discover and embody truth. And it's in here. And then giving ourselves the full faith in that divine authority that's in here. And being like, you know what? That might be a crazy impulse that's rising in me, but I have such faith in who and what I am that I'm doing it. I am taking that next step. I might be terrified of the idea that is rising in me, but because I have absolute faith in the truth of who I am, I'm going with it. These are the folks who are the ones that we look up to, all those civil rights activists, all those incredible creative geniuses, all the inventors, all the great thinkers, all the technology and evolution that has happened in society. All of those things have risen in the mind of a human. All of the ways we want to see the world get better, all of the ways we want to see our own lives get better, all of the ways we want to see our neighbors' lives get better, our beloved's lives get better, will rise in your mind. And it is entirely on us to take that action. So now that we have fully accepted the truth of who we are, and we are 100% in faith about who and what that is, I'm going to ask you to go within one more time. Just close your eyes if you're comfortable. And I want you to become aware of an impulse, of an idea that is rising in you right now. And as that impulse or idea rises in your being, I want you to ask yourself, can I follow this? Can I allow this idea or this impulse to lead me in action? And what is the next action you will take in honor of this idea and impulse? And as you find your words around this, I want you to turn to somebody near you and share that action out loud as a declaration. Those of you online, I invite you to type it in the comments feed if you're watching by yourself. Type it in the comments so you can declare this next right step. I want to share with you a question I received recently from a community member. Amani, I want to know, do the principles of the ABQCSL work for anybody? It looks like people are depending on Sundays for an hour of happiness, which is good that you're able to uplift us all. But I want to see the center's principles bringing people happiness outside of Sunday. I'm curious. And I thought, well, that doesn't just sum up the whole Practical Spirituality series. Because that is the ultimate question, is it not? Do these principles work for everybody? And do they work for more than an hour on Sunday? But what I know for sure is that discernment and that relationship and that acceptance of your divine nature is how these principles work more than an hour on Sunday. And that the process we went through today, this simple process of listening and saying yes and declaring and taking action, this is all we need for spiritual living. And so I know that every single declaration made, whether just in your own heart today, is already in action. And anchor this with me in prayer. Oh, Holy Blessed One, that has gifted each of us with this thing called life, with this sacred breath, with this absolute presence and power and capacity and intellect that is moving right now in every being in this space, every being that is with us right now on the stream, and is moving through every piece of life, whether we know it or see it or understand it or not. And I know that this presence and this power and this capacity for greater love, for greater wisdom, for greater joy, for greater peace has already moved in us, has already moved in our minds, in our hearts, in our bodies, moving us into that great divine idea that can only find its way into this manifest reality through our lives. And because we've each said a holy yes, because we've each said yes to spiritual living, because we've each said yes to love and action, I know that the one is in fantastic motion right here, right now. I know that the good is revealing itself through each and every one of us, through each and every one of you, making all the difference, bringing all the joy, bringing all the love, and it is already happening. There is no other possibility except that the one is living as each one of us. And because we can rest in that, because we can delight in that, we can be empowered to move, to act, to say yes. So I just glory with deep gratitude in how fantastic the outpouring of this love is going to be. Good and very good. And let it be, and anchor it with me in prayer. And so it is. Thank you, everybody.